Aloha, all you money makers out there. This is Indar, and I'm super excited to have my great friend Steve here, and we're gonna have a fun episode today. This is season 2 of our podcast, and we're gonna get at you guys and go for it. I've been friends with Steve for a long time now, maybe 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And we met at a great mastermind ourselves event, and it was a great event. I remember that was probably the best mastermind with Brandon Turner, everybody, because I felt like, man, everyone was so tight and so close, and you just kind of let your guard down. We were working on.
There's no egos.
Yeah.
You know.
We were building ourselves up, and we can really relate to each other.
Absolutely.
We've all been there and done that. We knew the struggles.
Yep.
And the goal setting, all the funness of the event was great, and our story.
We'll leave that out.
Yeah.
We'll leave that part out.
Yeah. But Steve's been an airline pilot forever, and he's just great with that background, because you know what's interesting, we'll get into here, is he shares his relatability of being a pilot into business.
Yeah.
And it's constantly through our conversations. We were at dinner last night, and the conversations just constantly are like, man, I better write this down.
I didn't know if you were texting or making notes. I was like, who's he texting?
No,
Like, we're in the middle of talking.
When I'm at dinner, I put my phone away and it was just notes.
Yeah, I figured, yeah.
Our friend over there, I don't know, he was.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he was doing.
But I was just I'm very conscious when I'm polite to be with people. I actually make a point not to even hold my phone in my hand when I'm with people, because it draws your attention.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Side note, but. Steve says he has a great book, Building an Empire, Failing Our Way to Millions. And he's a coach, which is amazing. He coaches hundreds of people, and it's very inspiring to hear and see the different sides of all the businesses, because that's what we'll talk about today, really, is growing and scaling a company or starting from scratch. I think as all entrepreneurs, we all have that desire to do more and to grow more, and from one employee to hundreds of employees. I think a lot of the scalability is similar in a lot of
absolutely 100%. It's we'll definitely get into that.
But that's what's really interesting to me. So I think you guys love that part of it all. For anyone who just wants to be an entrepreneur out there, you guys will really enjoy this. So let's get it started. Let's go. She'll do a little cut, and then okay. Probably some of the biggest. So, as a pilot, what were some of the biggest similarities you see to being into real estate? I should mention that you have a big background in property management. You had a huge property management company that you sold off and you got rid of. I mean, we're talking thousands of doors. Yeah. And
it's interesting. I didn't really understand the relatability, and I'll paint a picture for you that will make sense. We were building our business, we're building our property management company, and we had owned real estate before that. And as we were building our company, I naively assumed that as the company grew, things would get easier, the money would flow in, all money problems would go away, and the faster we grew, the easier things would be.
Just like
anyone who's an entrepreneur knows that is the exact opposite of what happens. Next thing you know, I'm working 60 to 80 hours a week. I just cannot figure out the recipe to make this work. My phone is ringing nonstop. The days are turning into nights. The nights are turning into weekends. Yeah. I'm constantly on the phone putting out fires nonstop.
Was this before the VAs were involved?
This is before everything.
Steve is also known for having a VA. He was ahead of his time by getting a ton of VAs involved. Yeah. Virtual assistants, for everyone who doesn't know.
Yeah.
This is 20 years ago, before everyone was having virtual assistants or even knew what the acronym VA means. Yeah. And now he still has a VA company where he can place virtual assistants, but
and so
that's huge. You're ahead of your time.
Well, it's right person, right seat. Yeah. And so what and a lot of this comes from this situation that happened. So we just have a dumpster fire going on, and as we were growing so fast, we were actually putting ourselves into bankruptcy. Because the gap, right? The money, as we all know, we were scaling so fast we could not keep up with the receivables and payables. The flow of money, right? Yeah. In any business, there's the flow of money, cash flow. Yeah. And one day, I'm sitting at the airport and I'm waiting for this plane that I'm gonna fly out, and I fly a Boeing 777.
Yeah, a big boy.
Big plane. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this plane at the gate. So just imagine you see a plane come up to the gate. Now, the Boeing 777 holds about 350 people. And it basically, for lack of a better, it's like an apartment complex with wings. So when this plane comes up to the gate, you have 350 people getting off the aircraft. You've got all of their bags and all of their cargo getting offloaded and either going to different planes or going to the baggage carousel.
Yeah.
You've got the cleaners coming in from one direction and they're cleaning all the trash and everything off the plane.
Yeah.
And the catering is coming the other direction and they're restocking water, food, consumables. Maintenance is walking around the aircraft. They're checking tires, engines, structural integrity of the plane. The fuelers hook up these huge fuel lines to this wing. Now this plane holds 240,000 pounds of fuel. It takes an hour of high pressure fueling to fuel this plane. So this is going on. Flight attendants, they're in the back, they're checking, seat belts, emergency exits, oxygen, all that stuff. And pilots, we're up front, we're checking routing, weather, destination, emergencies, we're going over engine failures, all the stuff that could go wrong, we're programming the computers. Next thing you know, 350 people get back on this aircraft. All of their bags are miraculously found wherever they are in the airport, loaded in the belly. And in 1 hour, this all happens and the plane is buttoned up and it pushes back from the gate. And the most interesting thing I was watching is not one person has to talk to anyone else to make this happen. Now this could be in Hawaii, it could be in London, England, Tokyo, Japan, Rio de Janeiro, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every second this is happening. So in the airline industry, there's a term, it's called the dance.
God, that 1 hour is called.
It's called the dance.
An hour dance.
And when you think about it, that is a perfect system because it doesn't matter if someone doesn't know English, it doesn't matter if I'm in Japan, it doesn't matter, the system works.
Yeah.
Now, if the fueler doesn't do his job, it doesn't matter how good of a pilot I am, we're not making the destination.
Yeah.
But planes don't crash because of that. And you go, why? Because the system catches the mistakes.
I've seen the fuel's low.
Yeah. We have catch-alls in the system. So as I was watching this, I was like, wait a second. Like I've been trained by Boeing for 20 years doing this. Why wouldn't this work in my business? That was that aha moment. I'm like, I could create a dance in my business. So I go back to my business partner. I'm like, I got it. I figured it out. And he's like, what? I'm like, we're putting an airline in the company. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's buried in paperwork. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, just trust me. I'm like, we're going to create processes. We're going to create procedures. We're going to create job duties.
Yeah.
We are going to create checklists. This is what we're going to do. And that is how we scaled our company. And then we got very good with right person, right seat of using virtual assistants. I said,
How did you decide to get into virtual assistant? Because no one knew about it.
No,
what stumbled upon?
I was always I fly all over the world.
Yeah.
I fly all over the world, and I know cost of employment, and I knew that some places like Australia, because I was flying Australia routes, a lot of places were using people in the Philippines and other places.
Yeah.
And so I was using a lot of I kept trying to go contact Philippine companies and use it, and nothing was working. And I just could not figure out that recipe. I'm like, I know this will work because it's leverage. A business is all about leverage. You're leveraging people, systems, knowledge, money. So that's what a business is. So as I'm doing this, I'm like, and my business partner was like, dude, everybody needs to be in the office. I'm like, they don't. I'm like, they do not need to be in the office. And he was he was of the mindset that, you show up, you work 9 to 5, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think this is where the future is going. I think the future is going towards technology and using the ability of leverage of technology.
Were you, because this is before virtual assistants was popular, did anyone American kind of put you down, the whole jobs away?
No, we never, because I'm talking to business owners, so I'll give you an example. So when you're a service-based industry, our revenue to payroll was 59%. Okay, so if we made $100,000, 59,000 of that dollars went to payroll. That's what it was every month. Or if it was $1 million, it'd be that's what it was. So to be a service-based industry, a payroll is normally going to be between 58 and 62%. So we were in the sweet spot, but we weren't making money. So I'm like, why would I be paying, let's say a property manager, let's say I'm paying a property manager $40 an hour. I'm like, why would I pay a property manager $40 an hour to show someone how to log into their portal. Like that makes no sense. I'm like, that is not a $40 an hour job. That's a $6 an hour job.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, and because the important conversation wasn't happening because they were tied up with these $6 an hour duties. When the person calls, like when Indar calls and says, hey, I'm gonna pull all my properties if I don't get a call back, and they're like, sorry, I've been getting logins all day. So we were losing business.
Yeah.
The opportunity cost, like we talked about last night, the opportunity cost, we were losing business because we were trying to service the clients with the wrong person. So we had the right people doing the wrong tasks. Mm-hmm. So when I started looking at virtual assistants, I could not figure out, and we were going to the Philippines, and we were going to India, and we were going to all these places, and it wasn't working. You know, a typhoon would come through, and they'd be a landslide, they'd be gone for a month. You know, or they had the same funeral every month from the same uncle. I'm like, did you have a funeral last month with the same guy, you know?
Yeah.
And I was going to give up, and a buddy of mine one day, I'm having lunch with him, and this is in Houston, Texas, and he says, man, we are killing it with virtual assistants. And I'm like, dude, whatever. I'm like, stop. He goes, no. He goes, I think I figured it out. I said, well, what's the deal? He goes, I'm getting them in Mexico. I go, Mexico? Same look like you. I go, Mexico? I go, I never heard that. He's like, yeah, dumbass. Anyone that works from home is a virtual assistant. I was like, oh, I thought they had to be from the Philippines or India. Like, I just assumed.
Yeah.
He's like, no. I said, well, why Mexico? What's the big deal about that? He goes, number one, same time zone.
Yeah.
So I know from being a pilot and flying all over the world, when somebody is working on the backside of the clock, meaning when somebody says like, oh, they work my time, you are not as effective as a human working night times. You're just not. I mean, there are many tests. As a matter of fact, if you go too long without sleep, it's the same thing as drunk driving. It's the same reaction. So I know that to be a fact, that you're not going to be as effective when they work on mine. If they work on their time frame, now you've got a 1 day lag all the time. They send an email, oh, that wasn't right. You send this, so now the business is clunky. There's a lot of friction.
Yeah.
So he says, that's the first reason. I said, okay. I said, that makes sense. I go, what's the other reason? He said, well, he goes, 50% of them either grew up or lived in the United States at one time. They get the lingo, they get the slang, they get the jokes, they get the conversation.
Yeah. Their English is pretty clean too. I think it's a big one.
Absolutely.
Service,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I said, wow. He goes, dude, I'm telling you. He goes, you got to interview one. I'm like, well, I got nothing to lose because I had nothing.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget, man. So I interviewed this guy. His name is Claudio. I'll never forget. So perfect English. I said, oh, what, like, are you from Mexico? Like, I don't know the fuck to say to this guy. I'm like, you from Mexico? He's like, no, I actually grew up in Cerritos. He goes, I got my realtor license, and my mom lives down here, so I moved down here with her. I was like, oh, like Cerritos, California? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I grew up in LA. So now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, like you wouldn't have a Filipino virtual assistant saying they lived in LA, right? Yeah. So all of a sudden I've got a bond with this guy, and I said, well, what did you do before this in Mexico? He goes, oh, I was a 911 dispatcher. I said, oh, that's cool. And then I stopped. I go, wait a second. I didn't know Mexico had 911. And he laughed and he goes, they don't. I said, well, who were you a 911 dispatcher for? And he goes, the state of Texas. I go, what? I said, you mean when I call 911 in Houston, it doesn't go to some Command 5 center? He goes, no. I said, it goes to you? And he says, yeah. And I go, well, what do you do next? He goes, well, we identify their problem. We render first aid. And then we dispatch the authorities and we stay on the line until the appropriate authorities call. And I'm like, I mean, my face was like, you gotta be kidding me. I couldn't have gotten that in the Philippines. And I'm thinking, if they could save a life, they could save my company. And so we went all in. We ended up having 25 virtual assistants down in Mexico. Our payroll to revenue went from 59% all the way down to 31%. That's where our profit was hidden, was in our payroll costs. And they were doing a better job, more effective.
You got more people.
More staff hours. As opposed to, let's say we had 10 in the US, we had 25. We saw our US employees. But my position was, if it doesn't need a license and it doesn't need a handshake,
at dinner you're challenging us on that you can have a virtual assistant do that job. You're like challenging, and we're trying to rebuttal and say, no, we need somebody here.
I get everyone saying, but we're different. My industry's different. I'm like, it shouldn't be different. That's the problem. If your industry it's not. Listen, trust me. I work with a lot of flippers and wholesalers that I show them how to. It's you. It's just it's the challenges of letting go. That's the challenge, right? And it's okay. It's okay to do that, but it's not lack of your industry is that special. There's no such thing. And I've got a client, and she was a little nervous because her maintenance coordinator, she owns a real estate business, and her maintenance coordinator was going to be moving to another city, and was going to be remote. She's like, man, I feel a little nervous about this. And I'm like, why? And she goes, well, my maintenance coordinator's moving. And I said, okay. I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, you're planning to expand, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, you're planning on going to different cities, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, are you going to have this person in every city? Like, is this person, you gonna duplicate this rock star person in every city? Yeah. No. Like the whole idea of remote is, the problem is, the reason we don't like to do it is it shines a weakness on our lack of systems and our lack of scalability. That's what it does. So what do? We go, oh, don't worry about it. I'll do it in the office and we'll take care of it here. And that's how we kind of deal with it. We go, it can't be outsourced. Anything can be outsourced.
I'm just thinking here of an employee I pay a lot of money to right now. I'm like, man, that could be outsourced. But I mean, you always have that. And I hate to say this, but like, it's a you problem. Yeah. It's a you issue. It's not a systems issue. Yeah. Like when I look at if it does not require someone to physically open this door, or someone to have a license, it's a you problem. Yeah. You just have to open your mind and go, what if? Like, what if he's right? Like, what if I could scale my company? Like, I know people that do real estate. We know some people that I've sold virtual assistants to, that have scaled their companies exponentially with virtual assistants. Think about it. If you're paying two person to do one job,
for half the price still. And the work ethic is amazing. It is amazing. And these are people college educated, college degrees. I mean, these are very, very, and they don't just, it's not like they don't have a job. They're leaving careers to come.
And one thing I didn't realize early on was I felt bad paying, I had an Indian guy from India paying $4 an hour, super cheap. I was like, oh man, only $4 an hour. And I realized somebody told me, $4 an hour in India is like $100,000 job. It's
Absolutely.
US dollars converted to their currency.
Absolutely.
So you don't, the Philippines, for example, virtual assistant jobs are like, these guys are making $100,000 type of jobs over there.
It's just a matter of, that's the market. Again, that goes back to understanding what your business is and understanding it's not look, I have learned through mistakes of my own that business has nothing to do with my feelings and has nothing to do with my gut emotions. It is all data and numbers. That is it. And so as soon as you start saying, I feel, whenever I'm coaching someone and they're like, I feel, I'm like, okay, let's just stop. That word doesn't exist. And so we've got to get out of that, because if I was on your board, right? If I was on the board, which I am for people, and they're telling me, well, I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. That's not how businesses work. It's not about feeling. Yeah. It is about metrics, numbers. We are for profit.
Data,
Like, we are here to make a profit. Yeah. If we have a problem with that, then we have a bigger problem that we need to discuss.
It's nothing personal.
It's nothing personal. But are we all here understanding that we're here to make money? Yeah. And a business is really just a set of repetitious tasks done over and over again. And listen, even if you own real estate, if you own one property, you own a business, right? You have income, expenses, profit, loss, laws. Some people go like, well, I'm going to do a couple deals on my own and then I'm going to maybe hire a professional. I'm like, so you can't get sued for everything you own on one property? Like, you don't think that will ever happen? Because I know people that it's happened to. I'm not saying it will, but my thing is if you looked at the business as a whole and you look at all the roles, and I was looking at your company and you were giving me your opinion on your emotions, I would say we have a leadership problem. Like, there's a challenge with the leadership, because, and like when I coach people, I tell them, like, this is your business, right? This is your business. It's not you. It's not me. It's not the employees. Everybody has a part to inflate that business. Like, we're all breathing air into it. Mm-hmm. But as soon as someone says it's my business, they don't understand. It's not anyone's business. That's why it has its own EIN number. Yeah. It's a living, breathing entity.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So it's like, you may be an integral part, but it is not your business. Well, it's the sum of the parts.
The goal of any good business is to take yourself out. You should never be the business.
And so when someone says it's my business, I'm like, it's your job.
It's your job.
Because that's what you want. And then that's when people go like, oh, I can never, everyone needs me. I can't get out. Everyone's calling me all the time. I'm like, you created that. Like, that's what you created by, this is mine. Yeah. Nobody make a move until I tell you.
Almost every entrepreneur is in that situation where they're feeling it's them and it's me. And
it's an identity issue. It's like, you know, because, and I think we were talking about this yesterday, or I was talking with someone else about this, that like, when we're trained to be employees, right? School teaches us to be employees.
Yes.
And so when people go and we start to do a business, we actually are employees trying to build a business. It's like taking an Android app and trying to put it into an iPhone. It doesn't work. You have to have a business owner mindset to build a business. You can't be an employee mindset and build a business.
It's a classic plumber thinks he's a great plumber and thinks he can now be a business owner, and it's too different.
It's different. It's like, you know, it's kind of like the best athlete all of a sudden becomes the coach of the team, and they suck because they were good at what they did. But the challenge is, you know, before you ever want to build a business or start a business, it all starts up here. Like, you have to become that person first. I was telling you some stories about people that I've coached that I'm like, you're you know, $100,000 employee. You're not a business owner.
Employee,
There's nothing wrong with that, but call it what it is.
Yeah. I just learned about EBITDA and EBITDA, and so maybe 3-4 years ago, and I didn't even know about that, owning a business for 10 years now. My God, I didn't even know that, and I didn't realize that whole value of a company is the business owner able to take himself out. There's a cheat code of it to do is a 1x, 2x, or 3x. Yeah. You know, depending on the business owner's involvement of the company. And ever since I learned about that, I'm like, I need to figure out how to take myself out.
Yeah, the more important you are to your business, the less valuable it is to anyone else.
Yeah.
Because if I'm buying your business, I'm not buying Indar.
No.
I'm buying your systems, your subscriptions, your leases, the recurring revenue.
And flipping is a hard business to sell. Anyone listening?
It's
can't sell your flipping company.
It's not a business; it's a job. Look, it's a great paying job. Don't call it. It's fine. I've got no problem with it, but it's not a business.
Actually, some of the best businesses are the service industries who have contracts.
Absolutely.
The AC companies, the
property management companies. They want recurring revenue. It's the Netflix. You know, absolutely. I mean, when we sold our company to venture capital, that's all. You know, and I kind of got a master's degree education from these guys, and you know, I learned what they're looking for and how they're analyzing businesses and what the multiple is, and they were like, it's all about recurring revenue. We just want to, you know, one thing they wanted to know is, because our business was running on its own without us and it was growing exponentially fast, they're like, we've never seen this. And we had 25 virtual assistants. They were like, we've never seen all these things come together in one package. And I was like, you know, and then they started finding out that I was an airline pilot and how we built it based on systems. They were like, and so that's why they bought us. They were like, we want, you know, they're like, because we were looking to franchise. I was touring Australia as a paid speaker. I was talking to Malaysian government about they wanted my systems. So we were starting to swing for the fences on stuff. And they came and said, hey, are you guys looking to sell? And we're like, no, we're not for sale. And they said, well, everyone's for sale. And they were correct.
Your partner didn't really want to sell.
He didn't. He actually, you know, he got a little depressed after. And he became a VP as I did. And this new company had 10,000 properties. But it wasn't his baby anymore.
Yeah.
And he was a little bit lost. And he's good now. But yeah, he got a little bit depressed. He was like, man, I'm in a funk. Like, you know, when you build something that's yours.
And then your identity.
And you know, and the thing is after we sold it, like anything, and I've learned this lesson, that if you ever sell your company, never stick around.
Oh, really?
Because they will dismantle everything you did. And they did. They dismantled everything we built. The reason they bought us was because we were so efficient, so profitable. And they just basically, all these smarter people in Silicon Valley said, yeah, that doesn't work. We're ripping it apart and we're doing it the way we do it. Yeah. We're like, but you paid high 7 figures for this business and now you just ripped it apart. They're like, yeah, we're okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't care because I was on the sales and marketing side of it.
Yeah.
My business partner cared because it's what he built.
Yeah.
And then he had to stay there watching them dismantle it and basically apologizing to our customers that we had, saying, what the hell? Like, you guys had such a great product. Why'd you do this? And it was like, it's a big check.
How do you say no?
How do you say no?
You can do it again, too.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
I can just build this right back again.
Yeah, because you got the skill sets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think early on when I got into real estate, just realizing flipping in general, like I figured out I have the skill set to grow this again if I ever need it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Listen, anyone who's successful, they will tell you your successes are not built on wins; they're built on the losses. Right?
Yeah,
we learn our lessons, and anyone that has been in this game long enough will have war stories and scars.
I value somebody who's had losses and got through it
Yep.
and succeeded afterwards, because I feel like they have relatability to me and they understand the struggles of growing.
Yeah, and more importantly, I will tell you, and I've been involved in, like anything, right? Tough times, and I've had businesses that haven't done well. You really see the character of other people when their back's against the wall, and tough times.
Do they run? Do they?
Yeah.
Fold?
Do they blame?
Yeah.
Do they? And my business partner, we're still great friends to this day, and I always give him credit, man, because whenever it hit the fan, he and I were always back to back fighting it out.
Yeah.
And it was never about us; it was about the business. We were always sustaining the business.
That's one secret I think a lot of business people don't share. It's not out there, especially in the Instagram world, that the struggles of building a business, it's just this ebb and flow of great, I'm on top of the world, until the next month, oh, damn.
The same day?
Yeah, the same day. Like, people don't know that real struggle. And I think that's what a lot of people do not want to become business owners, because they're scared of that.
Well, listen, I think the thing about being an entrepreneur, right, is you can do what you want, right? You can dictate your own hours. You can buy a deal or pass on a deal. There's no one to tell you, hey, don't do that. That's the great thing. The bad thing is there's no one to tell you if you should buy the deal or pass on the deal. And so there's no rule book, right? And so again, I go back to we're brought up in schools that there's rules, there's confines that we operate in. There's no one there to tell you, like, hey man, this could make you bankrupt. Like, you are making a huge, and you're thinking, man, you're going down this path thinking this is the smartest thing in the world. You're in the penthouse. And next thing you know, you're like, I think I made a mistake. and you know this as well as I do, and any entrepreneur that's out there, when you lay your head down on the pillow at nighttime and you're carrying the burden going, what the F did I do? Like, what did I do? How am I going to fix this?
How am I going to fix it? It's just in your head all night. Then when people ask you, how much do you work? When you're a business owner, you don't stop working.
It'd be easy to ask the other way. When do I not think about it?
Yeah, when I not think about it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because my only question is always like, well, what's your definition of work? Is it thinking? Is thinking work? Because I make my money from the neck up.
Yeah.
I make my money thinking. So I'm always thinking.
Problem solving.
Yeah. And I mean, as an entrepreneur, I think that our job and our role is to solve problems. That's what, when you're buying a house, you're looking at a deal going, okay, I can solve this problem and I can figure it out. And I coach a lot of people and they're like, oh man, if I just figure out this problem, and I'm like, do you honestly think there's not going to be another problem behind this one? Like, do you honestly think, like, as if you add more zeros to your revenue, do you think the problems get smaller or bigger?
Yeah,
they get bigger. You have to get better.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to get quicker. The problems you see when you're doing $100,000 or $1 million in revenue is nothing compared to 10 to 20 million.
Yep.
It's like you're gonna go like, I can't believe that was a problem. I can't believe I stressed over that.
I see that now. The zeros just get bigger and bigger, and the stress gets bigger because it's more writing.
And you have to get faster at solving problems.
Yes.
One of my mentors.
Solving problems you don't understand.
You don't even know they're coming.
Yes.
You don't even know they're coming.
You have to have so many different, like, you got to be like expert at accounting, you got to be an expert at marketing and sales
and people.
Listen,
being a business owner is the toughest thing, because it's not just your product. Right? We're not in a vacuum. You say, oh man, I built this great house, everybody should buy it, and I should move on to this.
Yes.
You've got people, you've got contractors, you've got the environment, you've got the economy, you've got the city. You have all these things at you. And one of my mentors taught me one time, I said, he had I think he had 11 businesses. He had 11 businesses and very, very successful. And I said, how'd you do this? Like, how'd you get here? And he said, there's two things. He said, the first thing is I learned the word no. I'm like, what does that mean?
With 11 businesses, you think it's the other way around.
That's what I thought. And I said, I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like I feel like you're talking bear and I'm talking English. Like, say it in my word. He goes, Steve, you think that being successful is saying yes. He goes, let me put it another way. He goes, you go to the buffet. He goes, you put everything on your plate. He goes, and you think that the way you're going to be successful is you're just going to eat one thing on the plate. He goes, that's not how people like us, successful people, do this. He goes, we say no to everything and we only put one thing on our plate. He goes, you think I don't have opportunities coming to me all the time? He goes, everything is a no until it's a hell yes. And he goes, that hell yes is exactly what I'm going for. He goes, now no doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means it's not going to be me. It could be someone on my team. But he goes, I get opportunities all the time at me. And he said, the key is understanding what are you good at, what is your focus, and how to amplify that. He goes, so you should say, everything you say should always be a no. He goes, everything should be a no. And then think it through. He goes, that's how I do it. He goes, the next thing, you have to be okay with failing fast and failing often. He goes, failure is not, he goes, and again, he goes, successful people, we look at as failures is, okay, I know what not to do. He goes, you look at failure as, oh, poor me, I failed, boo-hoo. He goes, we don't care. He goes, it's like, we laugh at it. He goes, if we fail and we lose $1 million, we know that lesson is gonna make us 10 million.
Yeah.
He goes, we just look at it differently. He goes, you value the one thing that, he goes, you value the one thing that you'll get back all the time, and you don't value the one thing you don't get back. He goes, you don't value your time, and you put all your value into money. He goes, money is replenishable. He goes, I know. He goes, if I lost everything tomorrow, I know that I would make it all back. But he goes, you know what I won't get back? Is the time it took me to do it. He goes, so what successful people do is we compress time. He goes, that's why, and that's why you paying for coaching, and I was paying a lot of money, is the smartest thing you can do because you're compressing time. Mm-hmm. He goes, what took me 25 years, you're learning in 3.
Yeah, yeah.
He goes, so you're saving 22 years of your life. How do you put a price on that? He goes, that's the key.
I'm a big fan of coaching now, and I wish I got into coaching even sooner, getting coached by people.
Yeah.
Because I think it would just accelerate it so much faster.
Absolutely.
Instead of the failures of...
Well, look, you look at any professional athlete out there. I talk about Michael Jordan, you know. He didn't get coached up until him becoming a pro. He got coached to become a pro, and then when he was a pro, he had 5 coaches. This guy's the best athlete on the planet, in my opinion. So, any Mike Tyson, you know, any Tiger Woods, any professional has coaches, multiple coaches. But for some reason, we think that I don't need a coach, I'm going to do it on my own. Yeah. But I bet you our paychecks, or the ones that don't get coached, are not anywhere near what our professional athletes are.
Yeah, it helps just streamline it so much faster, and somebody to just tell you the hard things that you don't want to hear, and
accountability.
And
we were talking about working out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just having someone be there to say, hey man, Friday, 6 o'clock, you got to be here. There's a lot to be said for just that accountability of showing up.
She showed up this morning, man. I did not want to wake up, and I was hoping she would call me not to show up, and she showed up, and I had to work out.
And you did it, right? It wasn't, yeah. And that's what coaches do. They bring the best out of you.
Yeah.
You know?
And they bring the things you didn't think about too.
Yes.
You think about everything, but there's so much more.
Absolutely.
The second mind to think about it and
yep.
catch it the right way. But wait, we should answer some of our questions
yeah.
here. About young adults, since we can talk.
Sure.
What are some hard truths that you have for all the young adults out there?
Yeah, you know, I think that, you know, like a lot of people ask me, like, what would you change? Like, what would you have done differently if I was just getting in this game of real estate and entrepreneurship? I think the one thing I would say is I would have taken more action faster. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have let the naysayers tell me and drive my life saying, oh, Steve, you got to be careful. You got to do this. I listened to a lot of people. Even though I took massive action, I still made sure that I was moving forward. I would have moved faster.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because, you know, and again, I go back to time, you know, I think that what we're doing here as entrepreneurs is, you know, we were talking about this last night, is that we think that what we're doing is we're creating time, but the reality is you don't create more time. You know, nobody is going to get a 25th hour.
All the same day. Yeah.
Same day.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times people, so saying I want more time, that's not even realistic.
Yeah.
Saying you want more freedom, look, you could sell all your shit right now and go live on the beach, but you'll have all the freedom you want, but what you won't like is the memories that freedom creates. Mm-hmm. So it's not the freedom, it's the freedom that's giving you the actual memories.
The moments, yeah.
And I think a lot of times, especially if you're younger and you're getting going, you know, we get so focused on the destination, like building a company and selling it. Mm-hmm. or doing these things and making all this money. Making money, and that money that I made and transferring that into my bank account, it was very anticlimactic. It really was like, that was it? Like, that was like, it's not like they dropped a pallet of money on my driveway, you know? It's like, it was just a digits that just entered my bank account. And, you know, sometimes I wish I would have enjoyed the journey a bit more.
You're still grinding it.
Yeah, because you're just, you're miserable and you're hating it and you're kind of like, man, this is actually what it's about. Like, this is the memories we're creating. And listen, you wake up, we all wake up every morning and we have a decision to make. Mm-hmm. That decision, it's very clear. We are going to be better or we are going to be worse than the day before. In anything, health, money, accountability, parents to our kids, all those things. We're going to make that decision. And every day you get to reset. Mm-hmm. You can have a shitty week, you can have a shitty month, shitty year. But every day you wake up and go, you know what? Today the sun is up, I'm shedding that. And I say this because, as you know, I had a tragedy. I lost my son last year in a motorcycle accident. And obviously, you know, a horrible thing, and it's been very, very hard, very, very rough. And I look back and I realized that because I had a business that was running on its own, I was able to go and travel and do things with my wife and my son that I wouldn't have been able to do if I had a 9-to-5. I wouldn't have been able to give that attention to my son. Now, he passed away, he was 19 years old. He traveled to 19 countries. He owned his first rental at 14 years old. He lived at, you know, second degree black belt. He played rugby. He was a drummer of a Metallica band. I mean, this kid fucking smashed in 19 years and did an amazing life. And at his funeral, there was thousands of pictures, you know, of just memories of my son and my wife and everything that he did. And I think back, you know, all of those memories, they were all free. Mm-hmm. They didn't cost anything. Mm-hmm. And so as entrepreneurs, and what I do now is I try to talk to people, real estate investors, entrepreneurs, that like, these memories that you're creating, they're free. They don't cost you anything. It could be going to the beach, it could be going to dinner, it could just be taking them to school. We get so caught up, and we always say one day. Yeah. And look, I can tell you, you know, and I hope it never happens to anybody, statistically it will, that if you ever get a knock on the door from the police at 10:30 at night and they tell you that your son, you know, was in an accident and that he passed away, that one day may never come. And I tell people, like, I'm very fortunate that I was able to say, I'm glad I did, instead of for the rest of my life saying, I wish I would have. Mm-hmm. And I probably would have been very bitter and upset. But I go, you know what? And listen, I don't know if you know, if it was just meant to be and he was only going to be on this earth for 19 years. I don't know. And no one knows, right? No, none of us know how long we're going to be here for. But I can say that I'm so glad that I was able to give him that life. And for entrepreneurs that are so busy, sometimes being busy, that we forget to tell ourselves, you know what?
That's a struggle right there.
It's tough.
And you building its companies, taking your time.
Yeah.
Your family. I've never heard a solution for that.
Well, you know, here's the thing. I think, just like this tripod we have on this camera, I think life is like a three-legged stool. And the three-legged stool is you have health, you have wealth, and you have relationships. And I think you need all of them. I don't think, listen, we know people that make a lot of money and we would not want to be around them for more than 10 minutes. I know people that are dead broke, but they're the happiest people on earth. So that tells me money is not a barometer of happiness or success. Because I don't equate success to money. Now, I think you have to be equal in all of them, but I don't believe in balance. I don't think there's such a thing. Like, I'm leaving tonight flying a Boeing 777. You wouldn't want me calling my wife, having the conversation with my wife while I'm landing the plane. Steve, land the plane and then have a conversation. Yeah. Right? Like when you're talking real estate, you're not talking about your wife and kids. So I think we focus on what we're doing, finish that, and then pivot. Mm-hmm. That's what I think it is. So when you're with your family, spend time with your family. It could be 5 minutes. It's not the quantity, it's the quality.
that's a huge thing I try. One of my goals actually right now is to be able to pick my son up at 2:30 in the afternoon, and the second goal right behind that is to, when I'm picking him up or present with my son, is to be mentally present with him, not just thinking
Put your
about,
phone down.
yeah, not thinking about work and all that. It's to just be there and say, hey son, what do you want to do? And I'm really conscious of that right now.
It's good. It's good. And listen, it's not easy.
I got my weekends down. My weekends, I'm out to the world. I'm pretty good at that. But being home at certain times, sometimes it's difficult.
It is, but just being aware, the awareness.
Yeah.
And listen, you know, people ask me, what's my purpose now? What's my why? You know, listen, I've made enough money. I'm fine. You know, selling businesses and real estate that I owned and being an airline pilot still, I do okay, right? Mm-hmm. But if you were to say, like, Steve, like, why do you do this? I think it's important that, you know, there's a lot of people in this industry, in this world, that are takers. They take. Mm-hmm. They take people, whether it's personally, emotionally, financially. I don't think there's a lot of givers. You know, the people that we know, our friends, I think they're all givers. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a certain character and a code and a moral, ethical responsibility. And I just think if we don't teach that, you know, at some point we have to be selfless, not selfish. Mm-hmm. You know, and I created the foundation, the scholarship foundation in my son's name, to help high school kids go to trade school. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like that's the next evolution of my life, is to try to help people. You know, and again, you know, could I go and make more money and go to 9 figures of revenue and 10? Yeah, I could, but if I'm miserable and I'm not happy, does it matter? Like, it doesn't matter, because I know what the end of the journey looks like. I've seen it with my son. Mm-hmm. And once it's over, it is very final and it's very sterile. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I have made it a point to say, you know, let me just help people. Let me have conversations, because I'm just like you, right? I've learned on my own. I'm coached. I'm developed. I don't think anybody is born a good entrepreneur or a successful person. When we're born, you know, we know 3 things. We know how to sleep, we know how to eat, we know how to shit. That's about it. Everything else is a learned skill. I wasn't born a good airline pilot. I had to learn. Yeah. I wasn't born a good entrepreneur. I had to learn. So if there's no one there teaching the next rounds of people, and listen, everybody has a story. I remember when I published my book, one of my mentors said, hey Steve, you know, because I was speaking on stages, and he's like, you got to write a book. And I'm like, write a book about what? He's like, write a book about your life. And I'm like, I don't have a story. He's like, everyone has a story, write yours. It's
true, yes.
And I was like, okay, so I wrote a book. Yeah. And so I always think about that, you know, sometimes we downplay who we are. We downplay who we are to make other people feel better. Mm-hmm. Some people say, I'll give you an example. I was with one of my mentors, his name was Marshall Silver. And I was speaking at an event, and actually Tarl's event back in 2016, 2017 in Seattle. And Marshall was speaking, and he was my mentor, and he was Tarl's mentor. And so when I was leaving, Marshall says, "Hey, do you want to hop on the jet with me? I'm going to Vegas. I'll give you a ride to Vegas." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Yeah. Now, for me, being on a jet's not that big of a deal. Yeah. So I'm like, "Sure." So we head to the airport. We get on his private jet. We're flying. Now it's just me and him. His wife was there, but she was asleep. So now it's just, I didn't realize it was going to be 4 hours of just he and I talking. And he says to me, he goes, "You know, Steve," he goes, "you know, you're really good." He goes, "Man, you're going to help a lot of people." He goes, you have something that really is going to resonate with people, and I think you're going to be very successful." I said, "Man, thanks." I said, "But I got to get better." I said, I got to do this. I've got to learn this." And he didn't say a word. It got like awkward quiet, like for a while. I was like, "Do you agree?" He said, "Steve, let me tell you something." He said, "I've sold over $600 million on stages." He said, "You are flying with me in my private jet." He said, "Do you know what you say when someone like me gives you a compliment?" "Thank you."
He felt like an ass.
It's like, oh. I'm like, "Thank you." He goes, "There." He goes, "Do not ever put yourself down to try to lift someone else up." Mm. He goes, that is the worst thing you could do." He goes, "Someone gives you a compliment, say thank you." Yeah. That's all you gotta do. He goes, "Because what you're saying," he goes, "when you tell me no, you're basically saying that I'm a liar or I don't know what I'm talking about." He goes, "So you're basically insulting me is what you're doing."
You're like, I want that.
I'm like, well, I'm sorry. Like, so I just, you learn different aspects of life by being around different people.
One of the questions is, what do you actually take for a business to be successful? What did he teach you? Anything? Did he? I'm just curious what he.
Yeah, he taught me how to open my mind and be open to the possibilities of what exists. I'll give you an example. This was when our business first started. This is like we started our business in 2012, so this is like 2014, right?
Yeah.
And it was a very large investment. It was about $50,000 for a 3-day mastermind with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was me and my business partner and some other people. He's got a huge, 17,000 square foot house in Vegas. So we're at his mansion, and he says to me, hey Steve, I think our revenue for the year that time was about $800,000. And he says to me, hey Steve, could you do $1 million this year? I'm like, yeah, we could do $1 million. I'm all pumped up. I'm at a mastermind. He goes up and he goes, how about 5? Could you do 5? And I'm like, I'm doing the math and I'm thinking, I'm like, maybe. I'm not really sure. I'm like, it'd be tough, but maybe. He goes, how about 10? Could you do 10? And I'm like, thinking to myself, where's he going? I'm like, no, I don't think I could do 10. He goes, no? I said, no. He goes, how about 50? And I'm like, no. Like, I'm thinking, this is stupid. Like, where are you going with this conversation? He goes, definitely not 50. And I go, no. He goes, and 100? He goes, out of the question, right? I'm like, yeah, that's stupid. I'm like, he goes, you can't do 100? He goes, no. I'm like, no, there's no way I can do 100 million. He goes, okay. He goes, let me explain to you what just happened. He goes, at 800,000, you were okay. He goes, at 1 million, you were okay. But he goes, when I got to 5 million, your brain started shutting off all possibilities. He goes, when I got to 10, your brain was closed. 50, it was shut. And at 100 million, you were defiant, telling me that you could not make $100 million.
Yeah.
He goes, now what if I knew Richard Branson, he goes, who I am friends with, and he said, hey, I'm trying to inject $100 million into a real estate company. You would not be the guy I go to. You know why? Because you're $1 million CEO. You're not a $100 million CEO, and no one's going to give you $100 million because you are not that person. He goes, see, the challenge is you were thinking, how do I do this? You should have been asking yourself, who do I need to become?
To figure out how to do it, yeah. Who do I need to call?
Who do I need to call? Who do I need to partner with?
Yes.
Who do I need to get? He goes, is it possible? Google's done it, Yahoo, he goes, all these companies do it. But they become that person first before they ever do the work. He goes, now, most of the times we're focused on what you have to do. Mm-hmm. It's who you have to become to be successful.
Who, not how.
Who, not how.
Yeah.
So that was a valuable, I'll never forget that lesson, man. Very valuable.
That's one of the biggest things of scaling a business is, man, I can do it so good. I'm the best at it. I gotta do this. I gotta do this. No, I need to just call that person. They take care of that job. It gives me free up my time to do
what you do best.
My best and best.
Yeah, and listen, normally we are good at doing one thing. We have one good skill set. Everything else we probably suck at.
Yeah.
So the key, and again, that's a business. A business is leverage. Leveraging other people, other systems, other everything. Listen, how many football teams have you seen where there's just one guy on the field playing the other team and he's running around? No. Yeah. That's the same in business. If you saw that, if you flipped it on, you'd be like, what is this? But in business, we think that's how we're going to win.
And we know that we need to hire and grow, but it's can we afford it is a big question everyone has. Can I make the time to grow and teach that position? Is the other, I think the two biggest.
Virtual assistants, that's same. Yeah, it's a big challenge because, the thing is if we want, whatever your output is, if you don't like the output, right? If you don't like the output of your business, of your life, if you don't like the output of how you look, change the input.
Yeah.
If you change the input, you'll change the output. If you want a different result, you've got to change the actions you're taking. What's the definition of insanity? You're doing the same thing over and over again going, I can't believe this isn't working.
Yeah.
It's like you're doing this, think about it. You're doing the same exact thing
every day.
And you're bitching that it's not working.
Yeah.
Change the input. Maybe doing is the wrong thing. You're doing it and that's probably what's wrong.
Yeah.
Who do you have to become? Who do you have to hire? I'd rather have a smaller piece of a much bigger pie than all of a small pie.
It's kind of more fun to now that I've been actually trying to, instead of trying to do 100 flips a year like everybody else and forcing that, I've actually went backwards. I just want to focus on my business and I want to iron out the details and tweak this and tweak that. It's kind of more fun.
Yeah.
figuring out your business, because it's your baby, and you're like
absolutely
tweaking this, you're growing this company, and then naturally things will grow. The company naturally.
Well, the thing is, Indar, is like when you're building a business, right? You have that. It's your baby. It's in your mind. It's your vision. Being a leader is what you have to become. You have to evolve into being that leader.
Yeah.
You have to evolve from doing the doer to being the leader, because people, and I've learned this lesson very hard. People will come to work for you for a paycheck, but they stay because of your leadership, or they leave because of lack thereof. Because if you don't know where they're going, if you don't have the vision, and you don't tell people,
and let them know,
let them
believe in it and see it. And
there's three things that are essential to be a good leader. Number one is you have to have a vision. Number two is you have to inspire people about the vision, and number three is you've got to communicate that with everybody. And it's like, hey guys, our vision is we are going to be a $50 million portfolio making 35% profit margin, and I'm going to be working 3 hours a week. That is the vision for this company. If you don't believe in my vision, you probably shouldn't come work here. Like, it's very simple. Like, it's like, because people want to be a part of something bigger than them. Like we were talking about saying, that's why they join churches, religions, military, gangs. They want to be a part of something that's bigger than them, good or bad, it doesn't matter. And so you have to be the one. They're not going to figure it out. You've got to be the one to inspire them. They're showing up and they're saying, I want to be led. Lead me. It's up to you to step into that role. If you're the ones going, hey man, just grab a shovel and start digging with me because we're digging every day, at some point they're going to be like, I don't know what this guy's digging to.
What are you doing?
Like, and all of a sudden, guess what? Someone else comes along, they've got a vision. Like, hey, why don't you come with us? This is our vision. You're like, I'm out of here. You're like, man, I can't keep anyone. Everyone quits on me. It's like, because you're not inspiring people to your vision. You have it in your head, but you're not communicating that.
And let them know.
Yeah.
And creating the culture for them too.
Absolutely. That goes along with the vision. 100%.
We did talk about one thing we're kind of leaving out is hiring people and finding the right hire. And we talked about last night. I'm a big believer in disc tests.
Disc profile. Absolutely. There's I'll say, to break it down, in any business, I don't care if you're flipping, real estate, it doesn't matter. There's 5 key roles in any business. You have marketing, which makes the phone ring. Sales answers the phone, converts them to clients. Then it goes to operations. Operations processes that order. Accounting or financials pays everyone, and then you have leadership. And so what I just described is an organization chart. In those roles, in the marketing role, sales, operations, accounting, and leadership, there are 4.
That's my whole company right there.
That's a company. Look, I don't care if you're United Airlines. I don't care who you are.
That's all I got right there.
That's all it is. And so when you look at it, inside of each one of these roles, there's 4 things you have to have. Everyone, it's the same 4. You have to have a job description. What does this job do? Then you have to have roles and responsibilities. What is this person responsible for? Right? If I said, I hired Indar to be the marketing guy, but I think we should fire him because, dude, he hasn't cut the grass one time this whole week. The grass is high. And Indar's going to go, dude, that's not my job. Yeah, you should cut the grass. No, it's not my responsibility per my roles and responsibilities that you hired me on. So it establishes, what are you responsible for? So you've got job description, role responsibility, and the next things are key performance indicators, KPIs. KPIs are the report card as to whether or not they are doing their job. It doesn't matter if I like you. It doesn't matter if I think you're doing a good job. Your report card, the key performance indicators will tell me. And the last thing, which is actually the most important, is the disc profile. So every role has a specific disc associated with it. I can look at any, and when I coach people, the first thing I do, if they have employees, I'll say, I want to see a disc of everyone. And I can pretty much tell you who you're having challenges with based on their disc. I don't even need to know. I'm like, this is probably a problem because this is not the right disc for this role. So then you say, okay, are they better off for a different position? Or do we need to remove them off the bus? And that's the first identity of figuring out the business. And if every company needs to have these 5 departments, and every one of these needs 4 things in it. If you did that at the basics, just the very basics, it doesn't have to be very good. If you just had the basics, you would solve and eliminate a lot of headache, frustration, and problems just by doing that.
Putting people in the right place in the right job where they can excel and they enjoy what they're doing.
Absolutely.
One,
Yeah, and that's why we got so good with virtual assistants. Because we got so good at understanding, okay, this role is a C in the disc profile. And this is, if we just took two of these positions, two of these tasks, and put them over here, they could become experts at these two tasks. And now we're getting more micro. So we started kind of splitting the atom more and more and more. So we had different pods down in Mexico for our virtual assistants. We had a marketing division. We had a client division. We had an accounting division. And then we had one other, I forget, maintenance. We had a maintenance division. It was all done in Mexico. Everything was done in Mexico. And it was the 80-20 rule. 80% of every call we had, everything that came in went to Mexico first. And then it got filtered up. 80% of everything was answered in Mexico. The 20% that was hey, we're gonna get sued if we don't answer this, that came up to the States.
That's it to you.
Because that was the one that was a licensing, hey, we've got to, we're gonna lose a client, we've got money on the line. But normally what happens, they never get that email because it's buried under 300 other emails of how do I log in? Why do I have to pay my rent on time? That's not for the role that you're paying for. So we were able to put right person, right seat, saying, okay, is this a $40 an hour job or is this a $6 an hour job? And you'd be surprised what you could get.
That's so true. I'm just thinking about all the things I need to hire.
I can see your wheels turning.
I'm thinking of all the things I got to do right now. I'm like, I got to go work.
I got to write.
Yeah, I got to go right there. I got to get work done. I'm thinking of all the things to implement.
Yeah.
So it's hard to take the time to think about it all.
Well, the thing is that this is what's called working on the business, right? And so what I always recommend is you, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we should probably take about 4 hours a week. Block your calendar, whether it's an hour a day, 30 minutes a day, 4 hours on Saturday, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, at the end of the week, that should total 4 hours of you working on the business. This is creating the systems, creating the roles, responsibilities.
4 hours is not too much.
It's not too much, because if you do that every week, next thing you know, at the end of, you've done 16 hours, which is 2 full days at the end of the month. That's more than you've done up until now. And all of a sudden, you'd be surprised what you could accomplish by working on the business. But what happens is we live a reactive life, right? It's, the phone rings, and I've learned this with virtual assistants. Our biggest challenge is being reactive as an entrepreneur. Your phone rings, one phone call, a 5-minute phone call is equal to 23 minutes of lost productivity. Because you got to stop what you're doing, you've got to disengage, you have to deal with it. So how many entrepreneurs out there get at least 10 calls a day?
Oh, yeah.
So think about this. This is 230 minutes. That's 4 hours. Half your day is gone being reactive.
On the phone,
And now you're like, I don't know what I did today. I just put out fires. It's like, because you were running your life reactive. But if you had someone else taking those calls, now you can focus. And listen, just because someone calls doesn't mean you have to be the one you don't have to put on your superhero cape and answer it. And so that starts becoming the identity. It's got to be answered, but do they get to me? They should never get to you. Like that's the key.
They need to figure it out. Whoever's answering the phone, figure it out. They can figure it out.
I used to have people, my employees, they would come to me, they're like, hey Steve, how would you handle this? I'm like, well, if you were in charge of marketing and you had this problem, what would you do? And they're like, well, I would do this. I'm like, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't you give it a shot? Give it a shot and let me know. And so after a while, you're retraining them. Because if I'm the one who always fixes it, guess what they're gonna do? I'll just go to Steve. Now I'm like, they'll go, after a while they're gonna go, I'm not even gonna go to Steve, he's just gonna ricochet it back to me. That's what I want. Giving them ownership.
Give them ownership, and
Absolutely.
let them figure out the problem. They'll take more initiative to get it
They
done.
want to figure it out. They don't want to have to run to you all the time. But we train them to do that, and then we complain. We're like, man, I can't even go away. They're always calling me. It's like, dude, you created that.
Okay, last question. At the end of the day, what are you most thankful for?
I would say at the end of the day, I'm thankful for the life I have. I'm thankful for the decisions I made. I'm super thankful that, my son came into my life. I was able to spend 19 glorious years with him before he passed away. And, we were talking about this at dinner last night. As a parent, as a human, as a father, whatever you want to call it, we're always solving problems. This is a problem I'll never be able to solve. I'll never be able to fix the fact that my son was in a motorcycle accident and passed away. So it's the ultimate puzzle, if you will, that I can never fix. I'm very fortunate that my son was in my life, And, you know, as parents, we always feel that our job is to teach our kids. Teach our kids to be respectful, show up on time, finish what you're supposed to do, all these things. And these are all the things that I instilled in my son. Yeah. After he passed away, which is, you know, we were talking, I carry the Live Like Jet band, is after he passed away, I realized, I'm like, you know, maybe he was here to teach me to enjoy life more. Because I did enjoy life, but I never, he was that kid. He was that cool kid. He just enjoyed life. Every time we talk about something, I'm like, Dad, we'll figure it out. No big deal. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know.
I shared that with my wife when I went home to dinner last
night.
Like, man, I thought I was here to teach my son, but really he's...
You never know, man.
Here to teach me.
Yeah. You know, we think it's our job. So, you know, you look at different perspectives, and, you know, we've been able to help kids in the Scholarship Foundation. And you know, maybe his purpose was so that we could help more people. And no, because of him, you know, we started the scholarship, and now we're sending kids to college that would never have gone. So we're changing their lives as a result. So, you know, obviously it's a tragedy that we're doing our best to turn into a positive. But if you were to say what I'm most thankful for is the opportunity to be able to do that. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's I'm able to change people's lives out of a tragedy that happened, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that, and great friends like you and all the other people we know, donating and being a part of it. It's been nice, and it's been very helpful.
Well, that kind of leads into we have a question from our viewers out there. I'm tired of working my 9-to-5 job, but I fear of failing and disappointment. My family keeps me awake at night.
Yeah, you know, that's the entrepreneurial curse.
Curse, yeah.
You know, but the problem is that's a me problem. That's a him problem, because, and I say this very respectfully, no one cares. If I talk to you and I said, hey man, how's it going? You're like, oh man, this is hard. I've got this, and all these problems, and I'm getting foreclosed and stuff. I'm gonna go, oh man, that sucks. I'm gonna walk away. I'm probably not gonna talk about it again. Yeah. Because I've got my own problems. I've got my own life going on. Yeah. So he's got the imposter syndrome of what are people going to think? And it's kind of like, it's a little bit, and I say this respectfully, it's a little bit egocentric to think I'm that important that I can't let anyone down. That's how you're going to let them down. You're going to let them down because you're not being who you truly are. Yeah. If you're unhappy and miserable, either, you know what, figure out how to get happy or change the input. Make a decision.
I mean, that's 90% of our society. It's comfortable getting a paycheck every Friday and knowing you're going to get paid, and I don't have to think. I just show up. I do this, and, you know, and I get paid to do this. You know, to go out and to create and build and be something different. Yeah. That, you know, may not even work or fail.
Yeah. It's one of those things that we, you know, again, we have to put our ego and pride aside. It's not about us. It's not about him. It's about what's the bigger impact. You know, like I said, listen, if you and I learned all this stuff, but we never shared it with anyone, you didn't have this podcast, if I didn't go speak on stages, that's kind of selfish. Yeah. If I didn't share it, you know, you do these meetups, you know people, I mean, we know a lot of the same friends. Everybody is a giving person because we don't have those egos.
I think everyone who became successful, I think they realized there's more than enough to go around. There's abundance in life.
Absolutely, man.
Share, and everyone can flip a house or build a business, and I think there's enough for everyone.
You know, one of the characters I always test people when I'm talking to them, and I'll ask them very quickly, like, what's your revenue this year? And if they're hesitant to tell me, they don't get it. Oh yeah. Because they identify as how much money they make. Yeah. I really don't care. I mean, I could help you if you told me. Yeah. But it's like just the fact that they're hesitant means their brain is wired to go, man, like I can't share that with you. Yeah, yeah. But it's like, but what if I could double it for you? Yeah. What if I could give you some advice?
That's, you know, such a funny thing, because you're taught that in growing up in society.
We don't talk about money.
We don't talk about money. We keep it private. But then when you get into these
That's all we do is talk
societies.
That's all we do is talk about. Yeah, like this is my revenue, these are my margins.
It's very personal stuff that we ask each other, and it's like, it's no big deal. It's like, oh, what?
It doesn't define who we are. It's like, hey, I had a down year. I lost $500,000 this year. I'm trying to figure it out. Any ideas? Yeah. You know, but what do we do as employees? We hoard that. We hide it because we think that reflects who we are, and I think it's a mistake. But that's how we're taught as a society. So I don't blame anybody. But if you don't like the results of your life and you don't like how you're living, change the actions you're taking.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not a big believer, and I know some people profess this. I don't believe in just quitting your job and immediately quitting. Listen, there's the term mind your own business, and that's work your day job and build your side business.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah.
I don't believe
go until you get fired.
Exactly. Don't sit there and be like, I burned the boats and I'm in, and all of a sudden it's like I got no money. Like I gotta go back and get a job.
No, until they fire you, until they tell you can't do both.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know what? An overnight success is 15 years in the making. People ask me, they're like, Steve, why do you still fly? Well, reasons like this. I fly a $250 million aircraft, and I get to have my layovers and get to hang out with people like you, right? That's how cool is that, you know? But where is it said that if you love what you do, and it's called a job, like me being an airline pilot, where is it said that you have to quit? Like, why can't I do both? I love it. Now, if I didn't like it, and maybe like him, like he's miserable, then I would change the input to change the output.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. So don't let your job define who you are.
No, absolutely.
But is there anything you want to promote? I know you have your great book. You do a great coaching program.
Yeah.
And then you have your...
Yeah, listen, if anybody wants to know what I do 2-day events in Houston, Texas. I do coaching, I help people. You can go to my website, steverozenberg.com, ROZENBERG. And I show people how to have the life you want by building the business to run without you. One thing I've learned from successful people like you and other people out there, and people that are more successful than you and I, there's a recipe. There's a recipe for people that are successful. I just follow their recipe. Yeah. I don't have to be the smartest person.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Don't reinvent the wheel. I know people that are very successful, and it's like they bake a cake a certain way.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, it's like if you put the frosting on first and then put it in the oven, no matter what you do, you're not going to have a good cake. And many people don't know that recipe.
Yeah.
I've talked to people and they're like, Steve, it's not that hard. You just have to follow the recipe. Many people out there, unfortunately, they're doing all the right things, but they're doing them in the wrong order. And no matter what they do, even if they do more of it and they 10x it, it's still not going to be right. So my thing is like, just learn the right recipe. So I teach people, how do you make the right recipe for your life? Because it's not about money, it's not about fame, it's not about any of that stuff. It's about creating the memories. And so I'm just a big proponent of, listen, I tell people all the time, listen, and especially people that are here in Hawaii, if you make the trek to come, I'll give you a free ticket. Like I will let you come for free. If you make the commitment, like I don't need the money. I normally charge $1,000 a ticket. It's a 2-day event. I do them every month. If you want to come and you say, Steve, I want to learn from you, I would give you a free ticket just because you make the effort. I just want to see someone make the effort. Fly out to Houston to me is making the effort. Because you got to take time out of your life. As you know, right? You got kids. Yeah. It's hard to get away. So I tell people, you know what? If you're willing to do that, I'm willing to commit to you. Worst thing that happens is you change your life in the right direction and you figure out the recipe. That's the worst case. Best case is you change your life and you find out the recipe. There's no downside to it.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's what education in general is so great. It just puts it all in line for you. Yeah. Puts a recipe.
100%.
So you can bake that cake. I was thinking about in my high school. I used to copy a lot of the book reports and all that stuff and just cheat. But in business,
that's successful. Works. Yeah, it's called you're collaborating. Yeah. But in school it's cheating. But if you collaborate in business, you become very wealthy.
It's working harder, not smarter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a different ideology, and unfortunately, we were trained a certain way, and unfortunately, a lot of people are stuck as employees, and they can't change that mindset, and that's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, I feel bad that we're normally supposed to be talking 30 minutes here, but we went over, I think, an hour and a half. So thank you, everyone, for listening out there. And where can everyone find you?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram, Rozenberg Steve, Facebook, TikTok, all those things. Yeah. Again, you go to my website. If you plug my name into the internet, you will find me. So yeah, I'm very available.
Yeah, so you guys, please like and follow and subscribe, and just ask some questions. Don't be scared to ask questions.
Absolutely, 100%.
That's the biggest thing. We're here to help. Entrepreneurs, successful people will help you if you just ask. Don't be shy.
100%.
Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate everyone. Aloha.
Aloha.